Hello, my name's Arron, and today I'm going to talk about the JLG G10-55A and G12-55A telehandler, and I'm going to have a look at the hydraulic steering circuit. The G10 and G12 are virtually identical. The G12 just has more power, a little bit more lifting capacity, but in terms of hydraulic design, they're virtually identical. For the hydraulic steering specifications, we've got a hydraulic fluid capacity of 238 litres, a reservoir capacity of 144 litres, a max flow rate of 72.7 litres per minute. The steering circuit pressure is 203 to 210 bar. The fluid type is mobile fluid 424 tractor hydraulic fluid, and the hydraulic pump type is a load sensing piston. So the hydraulic circuit diagram from the maintenance manual shows the whole hydraulic system, including the boom lift, extension, outriggers and steering circuit, and the part we're interested in is just up there in the top left. So if we ignore the rest of the hydraulic system and just have a look at the steering circuit, it's a bit easier to see what's happening. In the middle there we've got a directional control valve, solenoid controlled and spring centered. That controls our 2-wheel, crab and 4-wheel steering just from a 3-position switch on the instrument cluster. So the steering direction and flow control is controlled by the steering orbiter, which is manually actuated. We've got a pressure line, a return to tank line, and this line goes into the hydraulic manifold to route back through the entire hydraulic system. So the steering and control valve position is currently locked, so you'd be driving in a straight line. And as the steering wheel is engaged, our steering valve shifts down and allows the fluid to flow through to the durator. Excess fluid can pass through to the reservoir, and further excess can loop back down through that shuttle valve and complete the loop. The durator can then pump the feed fluid through the steering valve, which flows through to our front steering cylinder. So we get a pressurization on the left side of the steering cylinder. As the volume expands, it closes in on the right side, and that fluid then passes through to our directional control valve. And since it is in 2-wheel steering mode, in the central position, the fluid can loop through back to our steering valve where it crosses over and feeds back through to the main hydraulic manifold. So the fluid can then be shared between the other hydraulic systems. And as soon as we turn the steering wheel to the right, our steering control valve shifts down and we have fluid flow through to the cylinder. And as we can see on the directional control valve, it's still in the central position, meaning the fluid flows directly through and doesn't pass through to the rear steering. So this is just the normal steering mode. And then if we change to 4-wheeled steering mode, the solenoid pushes our directional control valve across to the left, where the fluid can flow from this side of the double acting cylinder, and then the fluid flows through to the rear cylinder, turning the wheels in a anti-clockwise direction. The fluid then passes back through the directional control valve into the steering valve and follows that line back through to the hydraulic manifold where it gets shared with the rest of the hydraulic system. And if we need to turn back the other way, the steering control valve will shift back up and reverse the flow of the fluid. Then we have our crab steering mode, where the directional control valve is switched over and the front and rear steering are synchronized. So again, if we engage the steering wheel, we get fluid flow up through to the front cylinder, which expands on the left side, contracts on the right side, pushing fluid through the directional control valve, expansion on the bottom left side, contraction again on the bottom right. Fluid then flows through our directional control valve, back through the steering valve and into the manifold. And of course we've still got this feed loop happening in the gerator and steering control valve. But you can also use that directional control valve to lock the rear wheels in position, whether it be straight or at any angle you need. You can set it up in crab mode, switch the directional control valve to neutral, which will then isolate that rear circuit from the rest of the hydraulic loop. Engage the steering wheel to adjust or straighten the front wheels, leaving the rear wheels completely isolated. Okay, so that's the basic operation of the hydraulic steering setup in a JLG telehandler. Thanks for listening.